Okay, let's see. We are holding it off Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, and we're middle of the Gemara doing the analysis of Ula, and Ula said,
Yossi, can you have you turned on the
recording?
You turned on what?
The recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, so no more restricted conversations.
No, because I have to catch the last half on YouTube because we don't have a holiday here in New York. My minion's starting 7:45.
Oh. All the good jokes are on the last half. I'll make sure to say them loud, slow, and clear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we were in the middle of going through the analysis of the psukim in Parshas Chukas that discussed the paraduma with Ula's lens, and Ula told us that as you go pasuk by pasuk, discussing activity by activity, it's not consistent. Sometimes activity B is completely different in its rules from activity A, and sometimes activity B will be the same as activity A. And there's no specific rhyme or reason other than that the Torah is teaching us with exegesis how these things work. So we're up to the point on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, where it says the chibes begadav hakohen. So after the kohen does the zrika of the dam of the paraduma, he has to wash his begadav. So the Gemara darshan from there biki hunoi. He has to be wearing his big day kahuna. And Rashi says because hai kohen kra yiseru, the fact that the Torah speaks out that it's the kohen, it's extra. It could have just said the chibes begadav, but no yedana the hoda aribe kohen. I would have known that the activity that the pasuk was discussing immediately prior to that was the velokach hakohen eitz eretz ve'ezayv. So we know that we're discussing a kohen. The fact that the Torah once again says begadav hakohen, it's elamismach kohen abegadav. It's to tell us that the kohen needs to be wearing his big kahuna, which sort of give him his power. And this is very involved because we know that there is a machlokes. We learned a couple of blot ago whether or not the gartel, the avnate of the kohen hedjit, was the same as that of the kohen gadol, and we know for sure the gartel of the kohen gadol was shatnez. So if it's shatnez, it's logical to say that a kohen hedjit, if he's wearing shatnez, and the kohen gadol as well, can only wear that shatnez where he's doing the avodah, when he needs his big kahuna, because he doesn't have a complete waiver that he never has. He's always allowed to wear shatnez. While he needs his big kahuna, that's where he has his exemption that he can wear shatnez. So there's actually a machlokes rishonim where the kohen hedjit can wear shatnez. There are those, the Rambam holds he can only wear it while he's doing the avodah, and there are those rishonim who learn that as long as he's in the makam avodah, as long as he is in the Beis Hamikdash, he could wear his uniform, he could wear his shatnez, but not out of the Beis Hamikdash. What's interesting to note is that all of the avodah on the paraduma was done not in the Beis Hamikdash; it was actually done on Har HaZeisim. So there's a shaila how you deal with him wearing this gartel. So if you hold that the gartel of the kohen hedjit wasn't shatnez, it's a non-issue. But if you hold it was shatnez and you can't wear it, if you only could wear it during avodah, this wasn't avodah, this wasn't a korban. So there are actually rishonim who learn that even though he wore a big kahuna, he didn't wear the avnate with shatnez. He wore an avnate that didn't have shatnez when he did this process in Har HaZeisim. Then the pasuk says, "V'tamei hakoyin ad ha'arev." Dr. Gemara, we learn from there is koyin v'kihuna l'doyros. So Rashi says, "L'lamid al para hanasis l'doyros." So tzricha big kahuna. Not only was the original paraduma created in the days of Elazar HaKohen, not only that had to be done with big kahuna, but forever and ever, whenever a paraduma is processed, it has to be processed with the kohen wearing his big kahuna. Zok to Gemara, Omar l'doyros b'kohen hedjit chaper. We had earlier a machlokes whether or not all of the future Paras Adumas have to be done through a Kohen Gadol or through a Kohen Hedjit. So if you hold the have to be done through a Kohen Hedjit, I understand why the Pasuk needs to tell you that those Kohen Hedjits that will be doing Paraduma in all future generations need to be wearing their big tikkun. But according to the Shita that we learned Chukah from Yom Kippur, that every Paraduma lo'elam must be processed after through the Kohen Gadol. Hashta Kohen Gadol be'inam. If you need it to be a Kohen Gadol, it's like a Kal V'chomer. If you require the work, the services of the Kohen Gadol, surely he has to be wearing his big tikkun. So why would you think that the Torah has to speak out that L'doyros, the Kohen who processes the Paraduma, has to wear his big tikkun? If it's the Kohen Gadol we're referring to, it's Pashut that he has to wear the big tikkun. So tomorrow ain't a chanami. But Milsa, the Asa B'Kal V'chomer, Torah B'Kasav L'Kra. It's not unusual that sometimes, even though something is learned through a Kal V'chomer, the Torah would write it anyway, which is a little bit difficult to understand because the Kal V'chomer is one of the Shloisha Esher Midas, Shatar de Dreshes Behen. So why redundancy? So I heard over from an elephant a Pashat T'Svar. Kal V'chomer is a logical argument. You're always going to have a brisker who can come and slug up your logical argument. Now, there's a famous story they say when a brisker went up to Shemayim and he had to get his faher, the Rebbeinu Shalom asked him, Nunu, say over a shtickle Torah. So the brisker told the Rebbe, said, no, that's not how it works. Usually a shtickle Torah and I'll slug you up. So, who are dealing with a Kal V'chomer, since it could be slugged up, there could be a logical argument made against it. So, because of that, the Torah wants to back it up with a pasuk. Then we get to the next step. We've already burnt the meat of the paraduma, and now we're up to the gathering of the ashes. And the pasuk says, "V'osaf ishtar."
Yosy, 1 minute. So why just here? If you can slug up a Kal V'chomer, okay. So what's the point of having a Kal V'chomer?
So how? And also, where does the Torah decide to back up the Kal V'chomer?
Yes, that's right.
Not
Right. That's the real question.
I guess the Rebbeinu Shalom is a bigger brisker than all the briskers, and he already anticipates who might ask what.
Yeah, but why here? Why not in any other Kal V'chomer?
Which really goes back to our Algerman Shayla that we always ask. Who said the dash in the pasuk this way? Maybe dash in the pasuk that way.
That's right.
So once in a while, so you're reinforcing that we still have to rely on Messiah. Anyway, we slice it or dice it, we have to rely on the Messiah.
Right.
Did you notice, Yosy Simon, that David waited about 30 seconds to make you think that you got away with it?
No,
I want you to know.
I was thinking that he would correct it himself. I was waiting to see if he would actually, but once I saw he was going on, then that's when I stopped.
And I never thought I got away with it. I was just waiting to see when David would jump in. So we're all playing the same game. It's just different positions. Okay, Zok Gemara Vayter. The Osav Ish Tahar as Efer Apar. A Torah person has to gather the ashes of the Paradum. The Heniach, and he has to place it b'mokum Torah. So we darshan from this pasuk, Ish lahachsher es hazar. It says Ish, doesn't say Kohen. It could have said V'osaf as Efer Apara. Why did it even have to say V'osaf Ish? Who else is doing it? A robot? We would assume the person that we've been talking about until now would do the Asefa. The fact that the Torah speaks out Ish, it's to teach us that up until now it had to be with the Kohen, but this step can be done with the Zar. Once again, this is that concept that we said, that Moitzi Miyad Mashma, which means up until now it had to be done with the Kohen. Now it can be done with the Zar. Rashi's Ish Lachshar Zar. We were discussing avoid is done through a coin. Ish, the Hachshir Sazar, the cause of Osaf as Efer Apara, if it would have just said Osaf as Efer Apara and not mentioned Ish, Havamina, I would have known by default that coin Dal Ilmine, Iri, the coin, it's the same coin that we're talking about. Until now, that's who we're talking about. So therefore, cause of Hacha Ish, to tell you that even Azar is Tar. But then it says Ish Tahar. Why does it have to say Ish Tahar? Of course it's a Ish Tahar. And Rashi says why? The Lemute Tame, if it's coming to teach us that a Tame person can't be involved in the processing of the Paraduma, Pshita, the Chatas Kaya Rachman. the Torah refers to the korban, not the korban, that a paradum as a chatos, so surely the person dealing with it has to be tar. So why does it speak out tar? The hachshur se isha, to tell you that even a woman is allowed to do the gathering of the ashes. V'hiniach, the apostle is v'hiniach and b'mokim tar. So we learn misha yesh boy das l'haniach. Only somebody who has the das to make this hanacha. Yotzu cheresh shoyte v'kotten she'ein b'hem das l'haniach. A cheresh shoyte v'kotten, they're apostle to gather the ashes to place it in a safe place because they don't have das. Tananos, we learned. Hakol kisher lakadish. What does lakadish mean? So Rashi says something interesting. Losis maim ala efer b'chlicheres. So clearly from Rashi, the way this recipe was created to spritz on the person who's tummy is you had a container with ashes and you poured water on the ashes. Tosha says not necessarily. Who said that you poured water on the ashes? Maybe you put ashes on the water. And Rashi, Tosha asks, Pirush Rashi, Hamayim ala efer, you pour water on the ashes. So you know first they put water in the keli and then they spread the water. So basically, did you first put in the coffee and then the water, or did you first put in the water and then the coffee? The mashma mayim ala efer, the pasuk itself seems at first glance to support Rashi's position, but Tosha says the Brisa says not like that. So yesh lefarish v'nosan olav, meaning b'shviloi yitin mayim chayim el keli. Because of the afer that you're going to put into the water, you first put the water into the keli and then you pour the ashes over. It says mayim chayim el keli means the water comes into direct contact with the wall of the keli, and there's no separation of the ashes that are creating a layer on the keli before the water touches it. So there are those who say Rashi's lavdafka. Rashi is just saying that when you're mixing the ash water mixture, everyone's kosher except for chesed of the cotton. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'cotton. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a cotton is kosher, but he says it's possible the isha, and the isha cannot do this mixing, and we're going to soon see his limud why. Uposel b'isha with androgynous, he passes an androgynous because an androgynous is a suffix isha. So since he's a suffix isha, I hope I won't get thrown off of YouTube for saying this. That since the suffix isha and an isha is possible to do the mixing, who adin and androgynous can't do the mixing. So it's very very interesting.
You can get flagged now, lose your YouTube privileges.
I saw a memory yesterday that someone writes, "I'm mamish nespol." It's like an off in the nace that all of the COVID cases that I'm reading about are either only male or female, but all the other 70 genders that people discuss, I didn't see one COVID case in any of those miscellaneous genders. So here the Shailas of Yehuda breaks out a cotton from a cheresh and a shoita. They both don't have das. Vos epis Rabbi Yehuda gives a cotton more mitzvahs or more opportunity to do this mitzvah and not a cheresh shoita. They both don't have das. So what the Mefarshim are masber is the cotton is different because the cotton might not have das now, but a cotton will eventually have das. So there's actually a shaila in Shulchan Aruch. If you're walking on Shabbos with a cheresh shoita of a cotton and there's something that you drop something and you can't carry it, and something has to be retrieved, so you have to have the cheresh shoita or cotton do this malacha for you because they're potter from the mitzvahs. Who would you ask? So it's brought down. You should rather ask the cheresh or the shoita, but not the cotton, because the cotton is eventually going to be a bendas. As you see here, Rabbi Yehuda made an exception that a cotton is allowed to be isaac in the mind of the party. So Dr. Gemara, my time.
So you're saying a shaita is always a shaita. There's no hope for him. That's way. All right.
So you might ask, Pshita, my kamash malon. There was a famous guy who said a very nice word. He said, when I was 14 years old, I was embarrassed at what a fool my father was. And by the time I became 20, I was blown away at how wise he became in such a short period of time. Shazak the Gemara, my time of the Rabbanan, why do the Rabbanan hold that a cherish, a shait, and a cotton cannot mix the ashes? So that's very simple. The Ksiv, it says, you should take for the Tomei person that you want to treat from the offer shreifas achatos. Who's qualified to do this? Let's look back to the last stage. Hanach the pasiloch basifa, pasiloch b'kiddush. We said earlier, who's allowed to gather the Ephra par? We said a woman and a zor can carry, but not someone who doesn't have das. So that's those same group of people that are allowed to mix allowed to put away the ashes. Those same people are allowed to mix the ashes. So the Rabbanan are learning that this is consistent with the earlier point. So that's called mashma memela. That was referred to as mashma memela. This step, the mixing, is memela. It's the same halacha as the previous stage, as the asifas efer, and that it can be done by the same group of people. Rabbi Yehuda, he's going to learn it's moitzi miyad mashma, because he's going to learn that although in the last step it was mutter for an isha to do, and it was mutter for a zor to do, which is not a cheresh of a cotton, this is going to be different. Because if the halacha here is the same as the step before, as the asifa, imkein lemakra v'lokach in singular form. My v'lokchu. Why did the pasuk use a form of multiple people, a plural? It must be coming to add another person who's qualified that was not qualified until now. The afilu cotton, the pasuk lachasam, a cotton who was not allowed to gather the ashes, hacha kasham. Isha minale, where does he know that an Isha is not able to do it? Because Rabbi Yehuda said that an Isha and an androgynous cannot do the mixing of the water, because it says v'nosan v'loy v'nosna. It says v'loch l'tomei shreifas apar. It says v'nosan olav mayim chaim al keli. So it says v'nosan in male tense, not in female tense, to teach you that a woman would not be able to do this step, even though she was able to do the step before. She was able to do the asifa. Tosfos asks a pasha tekasha. Since when does the Torah use female gendered when it's talking about actions? So how could you be medayik from here that it means to exclude in the keva? And here it doesn't say ish behedya. It's just being medayik from a verb that's in the male gender. The shiny hacha midishani kraba dibure. The Torah changed the way it was speaking. The chsiv lokhu loshem rabim, v'had chsiv v'nosan lochi deshinin v'loy v'nosn. So normally you wouldn't take anything out of the fact that the Torah uses a male gendered verb, but here, since it also says the Torah is going back and forth from plural to singular, v'lokhu, and then v'nosan, that makes us darshan this v'nosan. V'rabbanan, the Rabbanan said there's nothing to look at over here. There's no extra limudim here. You cannot extract anything from the v'lokhu and then from the v'nosan, because ikazav rachman v'lokach, the Torah couldn't have used the word v'lokach in singular, because if the Torah would have said v'lokach and then v'nosan, have amina adeshakal chad v'yoyev chad, I would have thought that you need to have the same person that does the lakicha has to do the nesina. The same person who picks up the ashes has to mix it into the water. In other words, you can't have two people doing it. So because of Rachmana v'lachai, that's why the Torah said v'lachai, to tell you that there could be different people involved in this stage. Because of Rachmana v'lachai v'nosnoi, so then you might ask, so the Gemara should have used, again, a parallel. If it used a plural form in the v'lachchu, it should have used a plural form in the v'nosnu. If it would have done that, havina the shakal tray, if you have tray, you would have read into it, and you would have said that you need b'daf to have two people. Because of shakal tray, it doesn't make a difference how many people are involved. It could be one person, it could be multiple people, but you don't have any extra meaning there to tell you that this is different from the asifa, and therefore, just like by asifa, a lady and the zor could do it, but not a cheresh of a cotton. So too this step as well. v'tavo b'mayim ish tahor. The next step is, now that you have the mixture ready to go, someone dips some grass into the water and spritzes it on the person who's tummy mace. So who can do this? So once again, this is going to be moitzim yad mashma, which would mean there's going to be special lemudim in this post to say that it's different from the step before. So whatever you held by the step before, and this step, it's going to be the opposite. So let's just review. On the step before, Rabbanan held women can do it, but a cher shoyt and the cotton cannot. And Rabbi Yehuda held in the step before, women cannot do it, but a cotton may do it. So let's see what the Gemara says. V'lokach ezay v'tavul mam ishtar l'Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, who said earlier that a woman could do it, here we're going to be medaik for carrot. Since it says ish and it didn't have to say ish, we learned ish v'la isha. So the actual zrika on the tummy mace must be done through a male. And it says tahar. It says v'lokach ezay v'tavul mam ish tahar. What's the tahar? Tahar la'achshir sakot. So here the Rabbanan is going to take Rabbi Yehuda's position, because the limudim, the extra words, tell us that this is different from the step before. So a woman may not do the zrika, according to the Rabbanan, and the cotton may do it. Well, Rabbi Yehuda, it's exactly the opposite. Ish v'la cotton. Since in the last step he did allow a cotton, here Ish will tell you that it cannot be a cotton. And Tar lahachshir seisha. He holds a woman could do the zrika of the mei paraduma on the person that's tummy. So so in this case, Saifel like Yehuda, Saifel like Rabbanan, it's moitzim yad mashma. We're changing the halacha from the previous step, and since they had opposite opinions in the previous step, it will naturally lead to them having opposite opinions in this step as well. Zok Gemara, Meisvei. So what the Ula pointed out is that it's very confusing because every step has almost opposing halachas. So becoming tar from the paraduma, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and every step has different rules. Zok Gemara, Meisvei. That's why people love to have a master key. Because if you have to have 100 different keys for every door, you could drive yourself crazy remembering which key to have. And if you have to go through multiple doors to get into one inner destination, you can get confused. So that's why if you just stick to the coin, you'll be okay. And then he's like a wild card. He's the joker. Anybody could do this rika. Except for a tumtum and androgynous for an isha. And the cotton who has das, isha masayasai, a woman can help her. So a woman is not kosher to do this rika, but a cotton is. But if the cotton doesn't know what to do, the woman can help. Umazan could spritz. Yes.
Yosy,
Yes.
I heard a beautiful, nice thing this morning. Androgynous, the gematria androgynous is 390. Zohar and Venekeva is 390.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you say 390 or 290?
390.
390. Okay, I hope that'll be a shmira, that number, that when I drive up to 390 from Corning to Rochester, I won't meet any police, not Zohar, not Nekeva, and not androgynous.
Amen.
I remember when I was a bocher, I was driving with my brother up to 390, and I don't know what happened, but the speed limit punct was lower than how fast we were driving. It's very difficult to understand why it would have been that way. And we were loaded up with groceries for Pesach, and we got pulled over by a cop. And he looks into our car and says, I see you're schlepping a lot of groceries up for Pesach, and you have your matzahs here for Pesach. He said, Joe, where are you going for Pesach? We said, we're going to Toronto. He said, oh, I'm going to Borough Park for Pesach. My name is Officer Farberman. I would never give my fellow Jew a ticket. But I can tell you one thing, guys, there ain't another Jew around here for miles. So you better slow down.
That's cute.
So we have a brisa here that says that the hazah may be done through a cotton, but not through a isha, which is like the shita that we just identified as the Rabbana. And Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue on this brisa. V'loi, Zok Gemara, v'loi polag Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is not disputing this, which means that Rabbi Yehuda does not learn like we're learning that it changes back. How could you explain that? Zok Gemara, it's not like that. Amar Abaye, kibun de Amar Mar, mashma moitzi, miyad mashma, umashma memela. Since we already said that these are the rules, Polik, even though the Brisa doesn't quote Rabbi Yehuda as arguing under Rabbanan on this step, in fact he does, because if you follow along with the logic and the method of how we're analyzing the psukim, it's quite clear what Rabbi Yehuda holds, even though the Brasha doesn't quote it to finish. Zok Gemara, Vehiza Hatar Alatom. This is the famous limud that the tzedaikim don't agree with. Hatar is going to spritz on the tummy. Why does it say Hatar? Thou protestest too much. It could have just said Vehiza Alatom. Why did it speak out of his tar? Because tar mechlal shutami. It proves that when we say tar, it's because there's a mokum to argue because he's not so tar. So the Torah has to reinforce that he's tar. What do you mean he's tummy? How tummy is he? Limit al tful yoim shekosher b'par. Since the Torah declares tar, it means it's not someone who's obviously tar. It's someone who's really at tful yoim, who's a shtickle tummy, and the Torah is trying to say that I consider him for the purposes of spritzing the mayim of the paraduma. I consider him a tar. If you remember, the tzedaikim said you cannot have it full yoim, and that's why they would bedavke make the guy who spritzed, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, the gal who spritzed, they would make them into a tful yoim, so that it should show and demonstrate that tzedaikim are wrong. So that those who ask, I don't understand. What's the big deal? It's a kula, so big machmer. For the sake of peace, let's be machmer, and let's not allow tful yoim to do it. So the Mefarshim say that when you have to listen to a Rav, bein lechumra and bein lekula, and that has to be reinforced that you can't argue even lekula. Amar Rabasi said, Ki havu ba Rabbanan Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish b'para. When Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish were harving over the sugya of para aduma, they really wanted to try to find a way not to have this radical reversal back and forth from avodah to avodah, with literally turning around 180 degrees each avodah from one to the next. They tried to find some way to do that, but they couldn't dig up any dirt to sort of gain traction. They simply couldn't gain traction to their efforts. Not much more than a taila. I believe a taila is a fox, or does it mean a plow? The little bit of earth that will be dredged up from a field, they weren't really able to get much.
It's a fox. It's a fox.
So the masculine they claim they weren't able to get a chiddush out of the psukim of chukas liyos lechoden lecho b'shitasa lahashvois shehemik reseh kula motzim zamiyadzeh kula miskaimim zachazeh. They couldn't find a mahalach that they would either be able to make everything consistent or everything back and forth. But here, sometimes you're going back and forth, sometimes you're consistent. They couldn't find any way to do it. Kamoshamayla hashul, Rashi's neferish, a fox, Raglov kishadoris also in here. They couldn't get any traction. Ela Amri, they were forced to concede, like Ula said, mashma moitzibiat mashma mela. Certain places it's a contradiction to their earlier halacha, and certain places it's consistent, like we just learned. Tani Tanaka made Rabbi Yochanan. Someone came and quoted a brisa in front of Rabbi Yochanan. And what did he tell Rabbi Yochanan? That kol hashchitus k'seres bizarre. Every shchita of any carbon is allowed to be done by Yisrael. Chutz mishal para, only the para aduma. If you remember, we had a machlokes Rav and Shmuel, if the para aduma can be shechted, dafka through a kohen or only through a zor. So someone quoted to Rabbi Yochanan that a para aduma cannot be shechted by a zor, which I believe is Rav Shita. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said, "Puk tani lebra, get out of here. Don't bring me your fake brises. It's completely wrong. Lo matzinu shchita b'zar psula. You never find anywhere that a zor cannot shecht. So don't tell me here that a paraduma has to be shechted by a kohen." Zok Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, never mind that he's not even listening to a Tana quoted to him, he won't listen. He doesn't even accept his own Rebbe's halacha, who also concedes that Shechita Bazar is possible for a paraduma. Shechita's par Bazar psula. So Rabbi Yochanan quoted his Rebbe saying this halacha, that a paraduma cannot be shechted by a zar. But Rabbi Yochanan says, I dispute what my Rebbe said, because loy matinu shchita shepsula b'zar. You never find anywhere that shchita should be possible by a zar, and that's what I hold, which I believe is the shita of Shmuel. Bola etzel parashniya. So the Mishnah says that he came to this next part, and he said a whole new set of vidui. So Frek the Gemara, Mashna bevidu rishon, in the earlier Mishnah when it discusses the first time the Kohen Gadol said vidui, the Lo Amar Ubnei Aaron Am Kodeshech. He didn't say vidui for the whole Shevet Kahuna. He only said vidui for him and his household. What's happened? So Mashna bevidu sheni the Amar Ubnei Aaron Am Kodeshech. Now he's saying vidui for all of Shevet Levi. So tomorrow, Tana Dever B'Shmuel Kachim Yidisidin Hashemes. That's logic. Mutav Yovei Zakai v'Yechaper Alachayit. Better when he's looking to be mechaper over his brethren, he should have already received his kapara. Once he's clean, he can then proceed to clean the kohanim, like they tell you in the airplane. First, put the oxygen mask on you, and then you can put the oxygen mask on your children. And it's not as good when someone who's also full of a virus to try to come and clean up somebody else's virus. So they actually bring from here Allah al-Maisa. What happens if you're sharing a kapara chicken? So what if you have for your family and you're using the same one for yourself? So it's brought down Allah. First, you should do your zech halifasi for yourself, and then you should do zech halifasenu for your family, because when you're doing it for them, you should already have your kapara. It's a used chicken. I don't know how that works. Everyone's always spooked to use a chicken that has somebody else's virus on. I know by me, by the time I finish the chicken, there's no more room left. The hard drive crashes from over data. But, okay, so Shachta, he shechted the par, the kibal b'mizrach, and he was makabel the dam in the mizrach. Notice that earlier in the Mishnah, when it was discussing the carbon tomid, it says that somebody else was kartzai, somebody else finished the shechita. Here, the Mishnah doesn't say it. So most of the Mefarshim will learn that once the Mishnah tells us by the first carbon it was done that way, it's logical to assume that all the other shechitas that he did were done in the same fashion. He gave the dam, since he was not going to be spritzing this dam yet, because the first time he went into the Kodesh Kodeshim, he was doing the Ketores, so somebody had to deal with the blood that it shouldn't harden. So on the fourth step of the Hechel, Kadesh Lo Yikro showed that it shouldn't harden. And why was it there with a Hechel? So that he doesn't have to go too far. Once he's ready to get it, it's right there. A is because the coin, we don't want to make him run around too much. And B is we don't want him to walk around with it too much because the dam can harden after he takes it away from this person who's stirring it. Now, I always understood that the regular V was the fourth step. That's how we always touched as the fourth step, going up to the Hechel. But Rashi here doesn't say that. And if anybody can help me understand Rashi, maybe I'm just not copying Rashi properly. So Rashi's ala roived Ravi, kala ritzba, asuya, shura shurish tablois avnei shayish. The whole floor of the Azara, of the Hechel, were basically tiles, rows of marble tiles. The chal shura v'shura, and every row of tiles, kura roived was referred to as a roived. Because Salkadaite, Dal Shura Revius, Shemit Pesach Hechel Lufnim Kamar. Right now, the Gemara thinks that we're on the fourth row of tiles after you entered the Hechel. So from this Rashi, it seems like it wasn't a step. It was just a row of tiles. But I remember always touching this as a step. What does the article say?
Yes, we had it before, and you also had the same shortcut. I remember somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
What is the article? How does he touch Raven?
I don't have fun in hold on.
In Hebrew, he touches the shura also. It's a shura.
So it's a row of tiles. It's not necessarily a step. Okay. I somehow in my head I always thought it was a step.
Yeah, I also thought it was a step. Hold on a second.
No. So you're like the fox in the field.
How much earth am I going to dig up on the marble floor?
Yeah, so in English it says fourth row of paving stones in a sanctuary.
Okay. So let's see the Gemara right here. So noto machta. So right after he shechted and he passed off the blood, his next activity was the ketores. So the first step of the ketores was he needed a pan with which to fill with coals. So noto machta, he took a machta, and he went up to the top of the mizbeach. He, using this pan, it was like a shovel, he dug through the coals. He takes coals that are no longer on fire, they're just glowing, and the ones that are like towards the bottom, like touching the surface of the mizbeach. The yorad v'hinicha al roiv revisha bazara, and then he also puts it on the roiv revisha bazara. I don't think this is the same place. It says bazara. It doesn't say the heichel. I'm not sure if it's the same place. Rashi also, I believe, comments on it. No, he does not comment on it. But he puts it on the roiv revisha bazara.
The art scroll makes it very clear in the notes that even above he's talking about the same exact place. It's Rebbe Ravi from the Heichel is supposed to say, and here it's telling you Sheba Azara. It is the same row.
Okay, the Gemara is probably gonna speak about it. Rashi sort of hints that the Gemara is going to be talking about it. So he put it there. So basically, now he prepared a fire, and now he's going to go get the Ketores because he's going to carry in the Ketores together with the Machta. The Chol Yom every day. When now, if you remember, when we looked in the Bryce of Abaya, Mesadim Seder Baracha, there was the Maracha Gedoyla, and there was the Menacha Shniya Shal Ketores. It was a separate little pyre of fire that they had there that would create charcoal, which he would be able to use for the Ketores. So this is where he got it from. He got it from the Maracha Shniya Shal Ketores. And B'chol Yoim Ha'isachayta B'Shal Kesef, he used a silver shovel to dig up the coal. Umayr B'Shal Shozov. And then he put it into a gold keli. Rashi says the Gemara is going to tell us why. If I remember correctly, the reason why is if you dig with a gold keli, the gold will wear out. They didn't want to wear out the gold keli. It's expensive. So what they did was the shovel where they actually dug it up was with a silver keli, and they poured it into a gold keli because it was a gold machta that was used. But Vayoyim and Yom Kippur, they used the same one that they dug with. And Rashi tells us because we don't want the kohen to be too busy doing too many things. We don't want to knock him out. We need him to save his energy.
But Yosy Simon, didn't we say before that Mun Baz HaMelech only changed the handles of the kelim?
Yeah, maybe it was referring to other kelim. Maybe this was an exception.
Okay.
Because the Gemara ended up saying it was only the knives that he was talking about. Only things that have blades that would get degraded if it was soft gold. The Machta maybe was able to be.
Okay.
The other question is, isn't there, don't we know that the reason why the Kohen Gadol goes, which is a big day law into the base Kodesh HaKodeshim, is because Ein Kateger Nasus and Eger, and the gold was what was, the eagle was brought with gold, and that's where we avoid gold. So what happens when you have a Machta of gold? So the Mepharshim say, the issue of Ein Kateger Nasus and Eger is not time to have gold. If he wears gold begodim, he's like stolzering. He's like he himself is building up his pride. He's wearing gold begodim. That's where you say in kedega nachos and But a keli that's being used for the covet of the hektarah, that wouldn't be a problem. His shovel that he used to shovel up the coal held 4 kavim, and he poured it into a gold machta that only held 3, which is interesting. It must be that they wanted to either fill it to the top, so they had to have more in the shovel that they were pouring from, or could be some get stuck in the shovel. So because of that, they needed to have a shovel that held more than the keli that you were filling. Okay. Today on Yom Kippur, since the same machta that he shoveled with, he was walking into the Kodesh HaKodeshim with, it was Shlosh Kavim. Every day he used a machna that was 6 kavim, and he poured it into 3 kavim. So the shovel was 6 times, so it was twice the size of the machna that he poured into. But they agree that they only had a machna of 3 kavim that held the coal that went into the Kodesh HaKodeshim. Every day it was probably a heavier machta, it was maybe thicker metal, thicker gold. By Yom Kala today it was lighter. Once again, we're trying to ease up on the difficulty of the Kohen Gadol doing this work. Every day the machna had a short handle. Today was a long handle. And Rashi says the reason why it was a long handle today is because I guess with one hand he actually had a long handle, and the handle actually had to go into his armpit. Who says Roy Yosy, and this way he was able to not only use his hand to hold the handle, which tires out your wrist, it was a longer handle that he was able to use his arm and his armpit as well for leverage to help him lift it. Okay? Every day it was a greenish gold. I'm not a big mum from gold. Today was a redder type of gold. And the shaila, the Mefarshim, is it's because reddish type of gold is a higher quality gold, or we want the color red to represent the dam of the karbanos. Every day they were marked some of the Keturis in the morning, some in the afternoon. There was an extra matana of Keturis, Moisef Maloi Chafnov. They had a special individual matana of Maloi Chafnov of Keturis, 2 handfuls of Keturis that were brought into the Kodesh HaKodesh. Every day it was ground fine. Today it was extra fine ground. And Rashi says they took the regular Keturis, on Erev Yom Kippur they put it through the grinder a second time to make it super fine. The Ger Rebbes, there's 2 Ger Rebbes who comment on this. The Sfas Emes comments, why is it Daka and a Daka? It's because when you do tshuva, you want to show that you're not just going to overlook the small affairs. We want to do tshuva on every little part. We want to come 100% clean. And there are those who say that Keturis is mechaper and Lashon Hara. When it comes to Lashon Hara, you have to be mechaper even on a vak Lashon Hara. That was a plain Menachem, I believe. If you go up the ramp, you're headed north, right? Behind you is south, and you're walking towards the north, and you go up the ramp, which means the right side of the ramp will be the east, and the left side of the ramp will be your west. So normally you would go up on the right side of the ramp on the east side. In other words, the ramp was a 2-way street. You would go up on the right side, and all the pniyas are lerchimin, so you're going to go counterclockwise around, and then you're going to come down the left side. So there was 2-way traffic on this kevish. So but today the Kohen Gadol went smack up the middle of the road. The Yored be'emtza, and Rashi says it's Kohen Gadol mar kvoidoi v'chibosun shel Yisrael. The Kohen Gadol is only representing Klal Yisrael, and he's trying to highlight the love that the Rebbeinu Shalom has for Klal Yisrael. Shu shluchan, he's their representative. But and he makes himself Haimish in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Rebbeinu Shalom's home, to illustrate the Rebbeinu Shalom, you love us. The Lahakif, if he was going to be going around the base, if he was going to be going around the Kuranas and the Mizbeach, going to Matam Dam Tmidin, the Musafin, the Eloi, the Eloyam, Makiv is Kalakevis, Latzorch, he could feel comfortable walking here and there and everywhere. He didn't have to be worried. He acted more Haimish. Because he was, on Yom Kippur, he wanted to show the Chiba that Hashem has for Klal Yisrael. The Kohen Gadol always could walk up the middle of the ramp. He doesn't have to listen to the 2-way rule streets. Every day the Kohen Gadol would do Kiddush Yadayim V'Glan from the Kir. Today he would use the jug of gold. Now we learned the first mission that discussed him coming into the Beis Hamikdash in the morning, where he toiveled out of the Zara by the Shar Hamayim. There is Kiddush Yadayim V'Glan there, and Rashi in the Mishnah says Min Hakir. So there's a shaila. If Rashi means to say that although all throughout the day the Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim was done with the Kiton Shozov, maybe the first one before he came into the Beis Hamikdash, could be that was done from the Kir. Or there's those who try to Rashi there, is that Rashi was just telling you that even though they used the Kiton Shozov, the water they still got from the Kir. The Kiton Shozov was filled up from the Kir. The Kohen Gadol any day, not only on Yom Kippur, he always had valet service. Every day there were 4 pyres of fire on the Mizbeach. One was the Maracha Gedolah, which we know about. Second was the Maracha Shnia Shakataris. The third was the Maracha. They had a special Maracha just in case the fire went out. They should be able to get more fire. And the fourth one, I forgot what it was for, but the Gemara is going to be Mazur. Today there was 5 because they actually made an extra little bonfire exclusively for the creation of coals for this set of Keturis that's going to be brought Lefnai Lefnim. Divrei Meir. Every day they had 3. Those 3 I did remember. Arba, and today's 4 because again they had an exclusive one for the use of the Keturis. Every day they only had 2, which is how Abai said in this Bryson. Today they had a 3rd one. Okay, I'm not sure what time it is. Where are we holding time-wise?
48.
48. Okay, so we'll stop here. So Mishak, tomorrow will be Mamshech. Everyone should have a happy Victoria Day. And tomorrow will be Mamshech in a normal schedule. Chaim Shvi, I'll see you in person tomorrow. I'm back in Toronto.